oh, they killed the prime minister of Yemen. No, they did not kill the prime minister of Yemen, you misinformed person. They killed the leadership of a terrorist organization. It's in and so that was an amazing operation.
Shalom, everybody. I'm excited today about this show. We're going to be talking about some development in the Middle East and in other topics. Just want to remind you about our Telegram channel. As you see the QR code on the screen, please consider following us on Telegram. We thank you for also following us on YouTube. And if you want to visit us, it's at shalominmessiah.com. You can follow us there. You can find more resources. You can also donate to our ministry to help us continue the work that we have done in sharing the gospel with the Jewish people and equipping the body of Messiah in fighting anti-Semitism. So my guest today is somebody I've never had on the show before, right? Wrong. My guest is
at least not this week.
At least not this week, right? John Holler. I mean, he is my my most regular dear friend, John. Thank you for being on the show, John.
Always good to be with you, Olivier.
And we are going to be together in person very, very soon. We are going to be participating in this conference in Rockwell, Texas. Hope for Our Times with Tom Hughes and a lot of other speakers, and you and I will be there in person. So that'll be nice.
September 19th and 20th.
September 19th and 20th. And for those of you who are local, on Sunday the 21st, Pastor Tom will also be speaking at Ridgeview Church in Rockwell, all three services. So you don't want to miss that. It's going to be a great weekend. John,
there's also a live stream that people can at hopeforourtimes.com they can sign up for if they can't come in person.
That is correct. That's something that I forgot to say. So thank you for saying that. What about people who want to find you, John, outside of that conference? Where are you? I always put all your network addresses on the description, but what's the quickest way to find you online?
Fellowship Bible Chapel on YouTube, website fbchapel.com. We'll have links. We're also Real FBC on Rumble. And then I post under John Haller 54 on some of the social media platforms like X, and it's either John Haller 54 or John Haller 1954.
Okay.
But so I post things there. I don't post a lot. I don't post every time I have a thought, which is often, but I try to post important things.
Right.
So
right. No, and I know a lot of people look forward to what you have to post because you have great insight and incredible connections, and so you've. I always, this is why I go to you on a regular basis because I always learn new things. And so we want to make sure this show doesn't last too long because I would hate to infringe on your golf time, on your tee time.
Well, that's okay. It's a few hours away, so we have enough time.
Oh, that's one thing.
Just relax. It'll work.
That's one thing I've only done 3 times in 65 years of my life, golf. 3 times. That's not my thing. But anyway, we're not going to get into that because if you find out that I don't care for golf, you might never want to come on my show again.
Well, somebody explained to me the other day that people have a hard time understanding golf, and part of it is the very nature of golf is that the fun part about golf is hitting the ball, right?
Right.
But the fewer times you hit it, the more fun you have.
Okay.
The math doesn't really work on that.
That's right. That's right.
A golfer would understand what that means.
Yes, yes. But well, listen, we've got. There's a lot I want to talk about. I think the main thrust for today is, generally speaking, is going to be Gaza. I just returned from Israel a couple of weeks ago. I'm going back in October to lead a tour, and I think you'll be there as well. on your own tour.
Right.
And I want to start with that, and then I want your comment on what you think is going to happen to end the Hamas presence in Gaza and operations in Gaza. Although we just found out that their spokesperson was eliminated a few days ago. But I want to start with this story, which I have shared, I think, on another program. But it's a fascinating story. Um, we were it's worth repeating. We were talking around in the house we were staying at in northern Galilee, and then we decided before we went to our meeting to go to the northernmost part of um, Israel in the small town called Metula. And Metula is about 2,000 people. There's maybe 400 back right now. A lot of them are reconstructing, clearing debris and reconstructing their homes, remodeling really and reconstructing because of all the rockets that were shot just from on the other side of the border from Lebanon, where Hezbollah had taken a lot of basically villages and homes, uh, taken them over and used them as a launching pad onto Israel, and the result was a lot of destruction. And we were walking that morning on the streets of Metula, and we see this man in a field working on his home. We engage into conversation. He invites us in, and we probably spent a couple hours with him. It was a wonderful time. And then he explained to us, he said he was born in Metula, his whole life spent there. He's actually a journalist. He's doing reporting in journalism. And we were asking about the hole, and he had two homes, and one he was fixing, one he was living in, and next to each other. And he explained that the rocket came from the border, which he showed us across his fence, maybe less than a mile away. And he says, "See all the over there? It's all the destruction. This is where IDF basically shot back and destroyed all the strongholds of Hezbollah in Lebanon." And then I saw to the right a village or a bunch of homes. Sorry, I didn't know it was a village. A bunch of homes untouched. And I said, "Wow, look at this. The IDF didn't finish the job, or they missed the target." And he said, "Oh, no, 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 no. This right there, starting with the first home after destruction that's not destroyed, is a Christian village. They would never touch it." And then he proceeded to say, "They are Christian. They are Sunni Muslims. They are Druze. They are Christian Orthodox in Lebanon. These people are not touched by the IDF. Only the Hezbollah strongholds are completely destroyed." And I thought, wow, you don't hear this on CNN. You don't hear this on MSNBC, or now NBC as they call it, rebranding it now. You don't see this. You don't hear it. But the reality is that the IDF really is operating with surgical precision to destroy the enemy, and be very careful not to touch the other people. And this is also what we've seen in Gaza, what we see in Judea, Samaria, what we see everywhere. And yet we don't hear about those things. So I tell people all the time now, I said, listen, if you really want to find out what's going on, you need to go to Israel. You need to really look for, you get a taste of reality. Talk to people on the street. Go around and look for yourself, because what you get on the news, even on the news, or the friendly news, like Fox News, which is kind of like middle of the road now, you don't get those stories. You don't hear them. What do you have to say?
Well, I think there's there's you've opened a giant can of worms there. So let me try to respond systematically. So one,
Yeah.
I think we need to distinguish between the the different theaters in which Israel has had to operate. I think we also need to discuss the unbelievable success that they've had in many of their operations. It's unprecedented on many, many levels. But to the different theaters that they're operating in, so they have the missiles coming in from uh, the Houthis every so often, and it's pretty regular. It's very disruptive. There are warnings all across the country. A lot of times they happen in the middle of the night. People are losing sleep, and I've talked to people in Israel recently, and there's a lot of like I guess what I would call it post-traumatic stress syndrome with across the country of Israel. I mean, I've seen many articles about the nation needs to heal. I think the Jerusalem Post magazine had a whole cover story on that recently.
Oh, coming back from Israel, post-traumatic stress syndrome. I would actually correct you, John. It's current traumatic stress syndrome.
Okay,
It's an ongoing. I mean, I agree with you, but it's worse than you think. It's an ongoing dilemma, challenge in Israel. So go ahead.
and people that I talk to, they're losing sleep, they can't sleep, they're somewhat unfocused and that type of thing. And those are symptoms of post-traumatic stress syndrome. But I agree with you that it's a current thing going on. So Israel did this amazing attack the other day. They found out where I don't know how they get this intelligence. This is amazing to me. So they found out that the Houthi leadership was going to be listening to a speech, and they did this massive attack in Sana'a, Yemen. They took out all of the Houthi leadership and the spokesperson. I mean, it's like 8 or 10 people. And then of course you had whatever his name is, Shink Uyghur from the Young Turks. Oh, they killed the prime minister of Yemen. No, they did not kill the prime minister of Yemen, you misinformed person. They killed the leadership of a terrorist organization. And so that was an amazing operation. They continue to do a lot in Gaza. I'll talk about, well, Gaza is a problem. So I would recommend, there was a recent interview with John Spencer, who went to the US Military Academy as an expert on urban warfare. He understands Mosul, Iraq, and the things that happened there with ISIS, and also what's going on in Gaza. And he's been into Gaza a number of times. And we don't really understand the nature of the problem in Gaza. It's not talked about enough. So in Trigonometry a couple of weeks ago, he did an excellent podcast with the guys there out of the UK. And excuse me here. I'm up, and that means that the people that do spam calls know that I'm operating somehow, or that I'm awake. But John Spencer did a great thing, and they have like 300 miles or more of tunnels in Gaza. This is hard to grasp. I mean, it's way bigger than the New York subway, the London Underground, other subway systems in the world, but it was designed to protect, to be a fighting base, an underground fighting base for Hamas. It was never designed for the Gaza citizens. It was designed for Hamas and their allies, Palestinian Islamic Jihad and other terror groups in Gaza. They could fit all 2 million people of Gaza in the tunnels. But what have you not seen in this whole operation? You've not seen the Gaza citizens in the tunnels.
No.
And it's also true, too. You will see, if you look for them, you will see videos of fairly normal life in parts of Gaza. I think about 25% of it has not been touched. And so you'll see bakeries, cafes, restaurants, beach, all of these things. And nobody ever talks about that.
Wait a minute. I thought there was a massive starvation.
Well, look, like me, there's a lot of people in Gaza that probably need to go on a diet, because I've seen pictures of them. They're not starving. The aid is in. And so you see all these people like Cindy McCain gets on. I saw her on Fox this morning. Oh, they're starving in Gaza. They're starving in Gaza. No, they're not starving. Hamas takes, by any estimates, use the UN estimates, 87 to 90% of all the aid gets stolen by Hamas so they can resell it and fund their operations. And it's amazing that since 2005, so over the last 20 years, Hamas built the most sophisticated tunnel network of any terrorist organization on planet Earth. It's a very difficult military operation to do that, to take that out.
But so
And
We have this organization Hamas, and people will say, well, that's Hamas, but that's not all Palestinians. And
Okay, that's nonsense.
well,
Go
I got
go
numbers.
watch the videos from October 7th. I don't know if you've seen that 42-minute video that
I
the
haven't had a
Israeli
chance.
government.
I've seen excerpts, and I've gotten personal videos from people in Israel a few weeks ago that I cannot unsee, but I haven't seen the 42-minute video.
I played Netanyahu came out and did about a 7-minute video that included a scene in a family home where they threw a grenade into the safe room. The father jumped on the grenade. He was killed. The little boys came out. The one couldn't see, one couldn't hear out of his ear. They were crying for their father and everything. But understand that a lot of the people that came across that border that day, the thousands that came across, they weren't all Hamas. They were regular citizens. And John Spencer makes a very good point in that video on trigonometry that this is unusual because this is the first war where we have tried to track, quote, terrorists versus civilian casualties. This has never been done before. But because it's Israel, we're going to do this because it makes Israel look bad. And so we have all of these. It's like a systematic or systematized, weaponized media education system and everything in the United States and elsewhere in the UK and France to demonize Israel with false charges of genocide. I have noted, and I think you can easily find these statistics, that since October 7th, they say, I question the casualty figures.
I do too.
Okay. And, but, they're what, 63,000. By, I've researched this, 50,000 babies have been born in Gaza since October 7th. The
Under
population,
the genocidal policies of Israel,
right. And I
quote
posted that on
unquote. Yeah.
X, by the way. And you know what the response was? Oh, I didn't realize that the IDF was raping so many women.
Oh my gosh.
I'm telling you, Olivier, this is, and so like last week in Detroit, and
Oh,
you can find the videos online, they had this uh, voice, for, something for conference, People's Voice for Palestine conference. It was an unbelievable hate fest. There were clear indications of people committing treason, exposing government secrets.
wasn't Rashida Tlaib part of it?
Oh, well, you can't even play the clip of her because of the MF words she's using in her, the great religious Rashida Tlaib, swearing and cursing at people who oppose her. And so this, and you can find the videos on X. You can find clips of them on X. You can find them on YouTube. It's interesting. We always, when we do stuff on YouTube, we always wonder, was YouTube going to censor what they put up? The whole voice or People's Voice for Palestine conference, which was just, they're calling for the intifada to come to the United States. They're calling for terrorist acts to take place in the United States.
If we don't pay attention, it will.
Well, and this is the problem, is that I don't think we're paying attention. We don't understand the nature of the problem, as John Spencer says. So it's a very unusual war in Gaza. The 300 miles of tunnels changes it. And as you've watched this, they will clear an area, they'll withdraw, they come back, and all of a sudden the soldiers get ambushed. And there was a number that were killed in an ambush last week. And as soon as that happens, people are oh, this is wonderful. Look at the great news coming out of Gaza. More IDF soldiers are killed. So now they're up to, I think, 900, which I think includes the ones killed on October 7th. So
Yeah,
they just
it's about
passed
900. Yeah.
900. So, but understand, so the war in Gaza involves these tunnels and all these people. I mean, so the people that keep this secret, the people that keep hostages that aren't Hamas, the hostages that have been released that said we were kept in a regular home of a doctor, or a physician or a surgeon. These are all enemy combatants. This is war. This is what happens in war. And I'm looking this morning, Olivier, at a picture of a part of Damascus that if you put up pictures of destroyed areas of Gaza next to this destroyed area of Damascus, you would not be able to distinguish between the two. That destruction was of Sunni areas in Damascus and Syria, all across Syria. This
Right,
happened.
right.
There was the Assad regime with the Russian helps. They tried to, and there was a famous testimony in front of Congress of the head of the of NATO or the of NATO.
Right.
I think his name was Breedlove, saying the purpose what they did was they tried to ethnically cleanse all religious Sunnis from Syria, Russia, and Assad. And they remember they had them in the south in Dara, in the south of Syria, and moved them up to the north. And these and what they did, there's massive destruction across Syria, in Damascus. You walk, and then there's normal parts of Damascus that have not been touched because that was the Assad regime base. And this is exactly what's going on in Gaza. But there are no protests about Syria. There were probably at least 10 times as many Syrians killed in the Syrian civil war since 2011. I actually was in Israel near Dara at the south end of the Sea of Galilee the day the Syrian civil war started back in March 2011, 30 miles away. It was amazing. 30 miles away, the world's falling apart. And then you're sitting there on this beautiful Sea of Galilee that looked like glass that morning. But nobody protests any of that stuff. And there were 10 times as many people killed in Syria
It's
as have been killed in.
double standards that we see all the time. And that's what it is.
There are probably 12, 13, 14 times as many people in Yemen killed and starved to death over the past decade than in Gaza. Any protests for that? In Sudan, close to 1 million people. Nobody protests. 62,000 Christians have been slaughtered in Africa, like Mozambique and Nigeria.
Cares.
Nobody cares.
Well, you know
Tucker Carlson doesn't care. Marjorie Taylor Greene doesn't care. It's disgusting. It's a double standard, and it shows what really lies at the core of all of this, which is hatred of Israel and hatred of Jews.
No Jews, no news.
That's right. It's disgusting to me. So we have the problem in Gaza. Israel's dealing with that, and we can question whether they've been effective, whether this is going to be effective, and whether there's going to be a rebuilding. There was the big conference at the White House last week. Jared Kushner, Tony Blair, a bunch of people. They released about a 38-page document of these glorious, and you've seen images of this, the AI generated images of Gaza that make it kind of looks like Dubai.
It does. It does. It looks very, very like Saudi Arabia and UAE and very much that way.
Man-made islands off the coast like they have in the UAE. And so, and they also have in, I believe, Qatar as well. So, and the question is that going to happen? And, there's a lot of concerns about that plan. I'm going to talk more about that. I think you're going to talk about it at the Rockwell conference about the sort of digital ID, technocratic, smart city thing that they're proposed. This is at the Trump administration meeting last week, smart cities, all of this stuff across Gaza.
I don't think. I tell you what. The short answer. Sorry for interrupting here. I don't think it's going to happen because we're trying to westernize a part of the world that is not thinking the way we are.
That's right. And some people have come up with a plan, like the great Dr. Mordecai Kadar. I've seen him interviewed recently, talking about his theory that we could do an Emirates type plan, like the United Arab Emirates. Those are really 7 separate clans or tribes that have unified together to form a government.
Yeah,
Um,
and at this point, I want to bring some. Uh, I want to say something that I think is gonna help understanding what's going on there. I was doing research for the presentation I'm gonna be doing at the conference in Rockwell, and I got a hold of those numbers. A survey that was produced by some kind of a Palestinian Authority organization. I forgot the name. I have it in my PowerPoint, but I don't have it in front of me right now. But the numbers are in my head, uh, and that's amazing to me because having studied the Holocaust and taught on it quite a bit, I made a comparison. And during the 30s and 40s, during the peak of Nazi Germany, we had, I believe, close to 60 million Germans or 69 million Germans in Germany during the 40s. And apparently, only 9% of them, or 7 to 9% of them, were officially part of the Nazi Party. And some people say up to 30% if you take all the sympathizers. Okay. But if you take the official, it's only about 7 to 9% of Nazi, of all of Germany were officially Nazis. And you look at the survey that was done recently, just a few months ago, and all of Palestinians, it's higher for some reason in the West Bank, which we know as Judea Samaria. Something like 82 or 85% of Palestinians believe that Hamas should remain and continue to do what they do and stay in power, and they don't want to see them gone. And when you mix that with the people in Gaza, it brings the number down a little bit. But the total number of Palestinians who support Hamas today, according to that poll, is 77%, as opposed to 7% Nazis who wanted to kill the Jews. We got 77% Palestinians saying, hey, Hamas is doing fine by us. And those are the ones who are speaking out. There might be more that are not saying anything. The number could be higher than that. 77% of Germans during the war would have been 55 million. So we're looking at, to put that in perspective, there are a lot more Palestinians supporting Hamas than there were Germans supporting the Nazis. Where
by a
were
factor of 10 or 11.
where were the Palestinians? Have you heard of any stories of Palestinians or Arabs, whatever you want to call them, helping any of the hostages since October 7th?
Or
None.
even saying, hey, going to an IDF soldier and saying, hey, there are hostages being held over there.
That's right.
That's not happened. And so this is a theater of war unlike anything that I think we've ever seen anywhere. Even in Mosul, which was a very dense constructed area of built around the area of ancient Nineveh, interestingly enough, in Iraq. And that was a very difficult war, house to house, room to room fighting. And I don't know if you've been down to the urban warfare base in the south of Israel down near Gaza, where they have a mock-up of Gaza City. And I've walked through that, and they have tunnels and they have rooms and mosque and all the anti-Israel, anti-Jew graffiti on the walls. I mean, they've done a very good job in the mock-up. It's not like a movie set mock-up. It's like a actual version of Gaza City to train people on how to do this. And I'm telling you, as you walk through there and you start thinking of all the different angles at which a sniper could attack you or something like that, it's what Israel has done and only lost 900 soldiers is absolutely stunning. That's all the casualties have been. I mean, I know when we were talking about this early on, I think Tom Hughes and I were talking to people at IDSF and other places, and the concern was there were going to be 15 to 20,000 IDF soldiers killed. So here we are, almost 2 years into this, and it's only
900.
900.
Well,
So
this is a testimony to God's faithfulness and watch over Israel, like He promised in all over the Bible. What comes to mind to me immediately is the scripture in Jeremiah 31:35 through 37, saying that God, no matter what the world can try, no matter how you can measure the universe, count the stars, God will never forsake Israel. And so we have this protection and this provision for Israel that is a very common thread in the entire biblical record. God will discipline Israel. God will discipline those whom He loves, but He's never going to allow for Israel to be destroyed. And you could actually, there's a case to be made, and you and I have talked about that, and there's a case to be made for every single one of the major wars that Israel has been through since 1948 to be definitely a miraculous work of God. To the last one, what happened in Iran, I mean, you have to account for God's involvement in this, because there's no way they could be doing what they're doing and have this level of protection. Like you said, 2 years into the war, only 900. That's miraculous.
The stories. So I'm telling you that, you wonder what's going to happen during the millennium. And I think in the millennium, there will be this recounting of history, and a lot of it will occur about the last 2 years of what's happened with Israel and its enemies. I mean, Olivier, just they did the Houthi attack last week. We talked about that, but probably flying under the radar. They've done two of these in Syria. They did one last October, where they went into a base near, sort of in the western part of Syria. Anyway, they went in. They were on the ground for like 6 hours going through this weapons manufacturing or missile manufacturing facility, and they took it out. But just last week, they did around. This is. I'm just telling you. I almost lose the ability to talk about it because it's so stunning what Israel does over and over and over again. I mean, these are things for military history books if the Lord tarries. It's for recounting in the millennium if He doesn't, I guess is the way I look at it. Because we'll remember this stuff. And so in around Damascus, there's a T4 and another air base. And there was concern, everybody does listening devices. They're all over the place. And I think when they get too good, Israel says, okay, you've crossed the line. So, and I don't know if you know about this, but in Damascus, near these bases, there were Turkish listening devices from Turkey. In fact, I think I'm going to talk on Turkey in my talk at Rockwall. There's a rumor that Tom Hughes is going to give us 3 hours each. Is that
Well, he's gonna give all of us 45 minutes, except that he knows John Holler cannot control himself, so he's gonna give
you
John
should
three
put me
hours.
last in the evening, and you'll get out of here when I'm done. You know. Anyway, I'm just joking. But the but they went in. They did like 18 airstrikes. Then they sent in 4 helicopters of commandos who went through this place 2 hours on the ground. They killed a bunch of Syrian soldiers around there. They cut off all the ingress egress roads. I mean, this thing is planned with stunning precision. They hoovered up all of the cell phones, computers, and everything and took them back to Israel and the listening devices to reverse engineer them to figure out how they're going to be able to do it. It was sort of like the beginnings of yet another pager attack, like they did on Hezbollah, which, by the way, was almost a year ago. So if we had talked about Lebanon for a minute, because you were just up there at Metula on the Lebanon border, the Lebanon border, follow Alma Research, Israel-alma.org is their website. And they do a lot of good reports with the North, Zarit Sahavi and her group. And I've interviewed some of them over the last couple of years. But, there was concern about what was going to happen with Hezbollah. They had a lot of rockets, missiles, mortars, that type of thing. A lot of them could be precision guided. And there was concerns, too, that there could be 20,000 Israeli casualties among the civilian population for 6 weeks to 2 or 3 months.
Wow.
I think there's under 100.
It's just
over
it's
with all the rockets fired.
you know it takes me to this thing. I think I saw this morning. A clip by Bibi Netanyahu. He said that we are still being accused of the same, and I'm quoting not exactly verbatim, but we are accused of the same tropes that we were during the Middle Ages and for hundreds of years, and we had no way to defend ourselves. But today things have changed. We have a country and we have an army and we will fight back. And that's it. That's the big difference right there. And they are fighting back, rightfully so. And the difference is it's black and white. The Jews are only safe in Israel and they are fighting back. It's about time.
And so this Syrian operation that just took place, and this was like 5 miles from the center of Damascus. 5 miles from the center of Damascus is in Damascus. You know what I mean?
Right. Greater
And they did,
Damascus, yeah.
yeah, and they did it, no casualties, no injuries, as far as I know. They got all of this data, all of this information. They shut down the listening devices. And the interesting thing is, I read the Turkish press every day. It's not mentioned anywhere. But and here's the other thing I think we need to talk about. So Hezbollah in Lebanon was different. They didn't have the ability to build the tunnels that they did, although there are pretty good evidence that there were tunnels that went all the way from the south of Lebanon to Beirut
Right.
that you could drive a truck through. And they spend all of this time tunneling like rats in the ground. But the other thing too, as I'm reading this about the latest Alma report, there were reports that Palestinians in Lebanon had turned over their weapons. This is a fake. This is a total fake out. Hezbollah saying they'll bring down the government, they'll cause a civil war if they have to disarm. So they had the Palestinians, but the point is, they talk about the Palestinian refugee camps in Lebanon. Now, wait a minute. How do they have Palestinian refugee camps in, it's a nominally Christian government. It's a very strange government.
Right.
But I was reading so I researched it a little bit too. In Jordan, right now, there are 2 million Palestinian Arabs living registered in Palestinian refugee camps in Jordan that have been there for 77 years. And I remember talking to one of the speakers when I went to the Christ at the Checkpoint conference. He was from Gaza, and he talked about the occupation. And I'm like, but I asked him, what about the refugee camps in Jordan?
What do you
What
say?
about the refugee camps in Lebanon? What about the refugee camps in Syria that exist to this day? Why are they there?
What do you say?
And it's the occupation. In other words, he had a stock answer that made absolutely no sense, even though this guy's a very respected oncologist who lives in Toronto now.
Hmm.
And I sat next to him at dinner and talked to him for an hour. And I think he offered me his cheesecake, but I turned it down. But
Well, that's amazing that you would turn it down. I'm just kidding.
well, it's that extreme self discipline that I have.
Going back to Gaza now, do you really think that they're going to be able to, in essence, in the spirit of the Abraham Accords, build a Gaza 2.0 with all those buildings? You really think it's going to take place?
I think there will be attempts to do that, just like I think, depending on your view of where Babylon is. Let's say Babylon is in Iraq, as a lot of people think. I'm not thoroughly convinced of that, but I follow it. The interesting thing, if we look at the Babel at the beginning and the Babylon at the end, the interesting thing as a pattern for prophecy, the Babel in Genesis 11, they didn't finish it before the Lord intervened. So I think that's indicative of that. Any of this stuff is not going to be finished before the Lord intervenes, I think.
Well, but I'm also
directly.
looking at Zephaniah chapter 2 verse 4, for Gaza will be forsaken and Ashkelon a desolation, Ashdod will be driven out at noon and Ekron will be uprooted. That is coming in the future. So no matter what happens in Gaza, it
It-
looks like there is an upcoming destruction of Gaza. Before when the Lord returns.
well, it would be very interesting if the people who prepared this elaborate Gaza plan, which is almost like a investment prospectus, when
Yeah,
you're
it looks like
investing in a
it.
company.
It looks like it.
But one of the things, as a lawyer who practiced in that area, you have to be very careful to disclose all known risk. So I think that it would behoove all those people who are doing this Gaza rebuild prospectus to include Bible prophecy in there that, you may invest in this, but it's going to be destroyed.
Right. So that would not really be a successful advertising campaign for investment, though, because people would go like, although, who really believes in Bible prophecy nowadays? That's another problem.
Yeah,
So
they're not going to include it, but they should, because it seems that a lot of these things eventually ring true and are proven to happen. So I really don't know, Olivier, whether they're going to get this thing built. I do know that they're planning on it, and they're big plans. And it's interesting, I can't remember the name of the program, but they created this entity that's going to manage it, called the Great Trust, and GREAT means something, and then the word trust after it, to sort of manage all of these investments and the building and the digital smart cities that they propose putting in there and everything. And you would kind of expect that coming out of the Trump administration. The big beautiful bill and the Great Trust.
right.
That's the it's just kind of interesting, the terminology that's used in these things.
Well,
But
I personally, I don't think that it's going to be very successful just because of the ideology of the Middle East and how I don't think even if we completely uh, whoever works at it is um, completely successful at eradicating Hamas. Um,
well, can
and
I make one comparison?
yeah,
So if you look at the videos from this People's Voice for Palestine or whatever conference that took place, the people that were there were largely American educated, and they are radicalized, Jew hating, pro Islamic people. Compare that to, and that's from American education, compare that to the radicalized education that UNRWA and the UN and UN schools have engaged in Gaza, in Lebanon, in Jordan, and throughout Judea and Samaria in Palestinian schools. You can go to impact-se website and find out what they've done. It's way beyond that. And so the question is, Olivier, so I'm sort of a big on logistics. How do they, so they talk about, well, we're going to do this, we're going to remake Gaza, but you have a radicalized population. To change that, you're going to have to bring in different education for several generations without being contaminated. Now, I know in some places that the UAE and Saudi Arabia have tried to shift the education system, but this is a multi-generational thing. It grew up over multi-generations. It's going to take multi-generations to fix it. I just don't see that it's going to happen before the Lord. I just don't see how it happens. Plus, you add in the Islamic character, and we see what's happening in France. We see what's happening in Germany. We see what's happening in the UK. And it's very, very troubling.
no, I don't
Um,
think it's going to happen either. And we could almost summarize it and say you can take Hamas out of Gaza, but you will not be able to take Gaza out of Hamas. They're gonna want to keep coming back and they might have another name. I mean, it could very well be another proxy of Iran that comes up with a new name. And what you have to what you have to take in consideration is the tremendous patience that Islam has in establishing itself in places and making them strongholds and doing their violent crimes that they're doing right now out of Gaza. I that's maybe for another show, and we briefly touched on that, previously. When I see what's happening even in Texas with Islam taking over in so many places, and we're in the patient mode right now where things are growing and then we're getting along, and but when you look at what's happening, the order of events of how Islam inserts itself in a place and eventually takes over and ruins everything. It's very scary, and I don't think Americans are paying attention. So, but I don't want. We don't have time to get into that.
Right.
I just don't think that this plan for the renovation and rebuilding of Gaza is going to happen. And to your point, it will take a complete uh, uh, re-education, rethinking. And right now, the ideology in that area is such that it's just I don't see it happening. It's a different culture. It's the East and the West, and we're trying to westernize a part of the world that is not thinking like we do. And I think it's this might be you know a little bit of the of Trump's downfall is that sometimes he can be too much of a businessman and thinking too much like a businessman. And in the case of rebuilding Gaza, I think it might be a case of that. What do you think?
Well, how do you rebuild the people's ideology? There is kind of a biblical pattern, if I can say this, in that when Israel came out of Egypt at the time of the Exodus, they didn't go straight to the Holy Land. And I've heard it explained by some rabbis that, well, yeah, we got Israel out of Egypt at the time of the Exodus, but we needed the 40 years in the wilderness to get Egypt out of Israel.
Well, the whole generation, except for a couple of
Yeah,
people, they all died off. So, you got a point there. So, I'm not wishing for all Palestinians to die. I don't want to get the comments. We'll get them anyway in the YouTube video. Uh, but it is true that how do you rebuild or change or even shift an ideology which is based on glorifying death as
right.
opposed to they worship death, and they don't respect life of their own, by the way, not even
Right,
of
and
the enemy.
right, and if we have this problem in America with American educated people, how much worse is it is in these refugee camps in Jordan, in Syria, and Lebanon, where the radicalization process has grown even more. I mean, I'm reading stories now about these ISIS refugee camps. And
Right.
you think the people have been re-educated there? No. You
No.
know what? They're worse than they ever were.
No,
And the women are really bad.
they're being further radicalized, I think.
That's right.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
this is a problem. And so listen, we can talk about peace and all this other stuff. Okay. I'm hopeful for that, but I'm just telling you that all of this is an indication of what Jesus talked about, that there will be wars and rumors of wars in the end times. And boy, we're seeing that.
We're seeing that right now, and that is. I'm thinking that's looking at the time. That's a perfect way to wrap it up, because we are seeing all those things again, like you and I discussed before, converging at a very very high speed. The wars, the rumors of wars, even the weather patterns and the earthquakes we've seen lately. I think we're getting really ready
Mhm.
for the final chapter. We are in the end times. I know we people get sick and tired of hearing, "Oh, this is the end times." Well, start looking at all the events, everything that's taken place, and lining up with Bible prophecy, and you see this curve that's going really, really quickly up. Um, and friends, let me say it again: your your position on the end times is is important, but it's not as important as your position in Messiah. So you can believe in pre, post, mid, three quarter, 11, 16th, whatever position is on the rapture, the tribulation, the millennium. What's important is, have you put your trust in the death and resurrection of Yeshua the Messiah for your sins? because John has, I have. We know that we both are in the family of God and we both will spend eternity in the presence of God. Do you? If you don't, today is your day. Just believe that He died for your sins and He rose again, and that is all you need to do to be included in God's family. The rest will fall into place. But, friends, the clock is ticking, and it's just a matter of, I don't know. We don't have a date, we don't have a time, but the time is coming when Yeshua, Jesus, is going to come back and wrap up His program. And I would like to believe, based on what I've read in Scripture, that the best is yet to come. John, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not, we talk about a lot of things. I don't live my life in fear. I don't live my life without hope or anything like that. I know that these things are coming, and I'm not. Um, I just don't. I don't worry about it. Part of it is because it's out of my control. So I just think we need to understand Jesus is coming back, but we need to be prepared for that. There's a He's giving us plenty of warning and indications
That's right.
that we need to
That's
get
right.
prepared for that.
Although, well, thank you for that in conclusion, but I think you do live a part of your life in fear when you're just about to hit the ball in golf. You fear you're going to miss your shot.
That's true.
See?
And I look at the best guys in the world, and they mess up all the time too. So what do I expect is going to happen
You're
with
in good company
a
then.
poor schlub like me?
Well, John, thanks for coming on the show. Until next time, probably will be a next time before we meet in Rockwell. But thank you for coming, and for those of you watching, thanks for watching. Please share this video, tell others about it, and until we meet again, be blessed.